Hello everyone, welcome to our next video on this chapter of control and coordination, and today we are going to discuss about the hormones in animals. Now before moving on to animal hormones, we must be very much aware of what is the need of hormones in animal body, because we have our nervous system and neurons for performing the signaling function. Then why do we need hormones as well? Well, to understand that, we must be clear about the fact that nervous system is connected to only certain parts of the body, to certain tissues of the body. Not all the cells of the body are connected to the nervous system. But hormones are chemicals which are secreted into the blood. And since it is secreted into the blood, it will be carried to all the parts of the body and it will cover all the cells of the body. And that is why hormones are a very good way that a body uses in order to send information to all the parts of the body at the same time, or it may be that it sends the information to a particular part of the body, but it reaches all the cells of that particular part of the body. And that is why hormones are extremely useful. At the same time, neurons are also useful, but since hormones can reach all the parts of the body at the same time, thus hormones are much more beneficial in compared to neurons. The only demerit that hormones have over neurons is that the neurons transmit the signals very fast, whereas the hormones, they cannot transmit the signal very fast or as fast as that of the neurons, because neurons will transmit the signals in the form of electric signals, whereas the hormones will transmit the signals in the form of chemical signals and through the flow of blood. But keeping this in mind, both of these systems are extremely important for our body and they will act in correlation to each other so that we can perform our functions perfectly. Before moving on to understanding what are the different functions of different hormones in our body, we must be aware of what are the glands that produce the hormones. And the glands that produce the hormones are actually endocrine glands. But these are not the only types of glands present in our body. We also have another type of gland called the exocrine glands. So, in order to understand what do they mean, we must know how they function. So, we have the endocrine glands and we have the exocrine glands. Now, endocrine glands will secrete the hormones and exocrine glands will secrete other chemicals that are present in our body. Now, how do they act differently? Endocrine glands do not have any duct-like system or any pipe-like system. So what endocrine systems do, these glands will directly secrete the chemical or the hormones for that matter. They will directly secrete the hormones into the blood. So whatever hormones they produce, they will secrete them directly into the blood, and the blood will carry all these hormones to different parts of the animal body, and that's how it will pass the signal to all the different cells of the body. Whereas in case of exocrine glands, they have a duct-like structure, and using the duct or the pipe, they will release the chemicals, whatever chemicals they produce, to directly the outside of an organ or outside of a tissue. So directly to the organ or the tissue. So it will not take the help of the blood in order to carry it to different parts of the body. So these exocrine glands are some of the glands like our tear glands, which secretes the tear directly outside the eyes. Then we have sweat glands, so that our sweat comes out directly outside the skin. We have sebaceous glands or the well glands for that matter, and these are some of the examples of exocrine glands. And the endocrine glands secretes all the hormones that are present in our body, like the adrenaline hormone, the growth hormone, insulin, and many other hormones that are present, and we are going to study about them in this video itself. So that is all about the two types of glands in our body, the endocrine glands and the exocrine glands. And now let us move directly into what are the animal hormones and how do they function. So today we are going to study about 6 different animal hormones, and these are the adrenaline, thyroxine, growth hormone, testosterone, estrogen and insulin. So first coming on to adrenaline. Now this is the hormone that is responsible for the fight or the flight response. Now fight response or flight response is generated whenever we are extremely scared of a situation. So if you encounter a situation that makes you extremely scared, you have got only two options, either to run away from that position or to take a fight against the opposition. Now that to be done, in order to run away or to take a fight against the opposition, we must need a huge amount of energy in our legs or in our hands. That is, our limbs will need more energy than the energy required by the other parts of the body. That's where adrenaline comes in. What adrenaline does is it takes away the blood supply from the different parts of the plant body and allows those blood to move into the hands and legs, that is into our limbs. So all the blood supply will be moved into the skeletal muscles, apart from giving it to the midsection of the body, that is the digestive system, or to our face, or to the vertebral column and every other part of the body. So without providing the blood to those parts of the body, it will actually help in providing the blood to our limbs. Now when blood is provided to different parts of the body, this leads to more oxygen supply. Because of more oxygen supply, we will have more ATP formation, or the adenosine triphosphate, that will ultimately give us more energy. And that is the reason why adrenaline hormone actually allows more blood to flow through the limbs, so that we can produce more energy in our limbs. Now why is the blood not moving to the other part like the digestive system? Well, that is because of the contraction of muscles. The muscles will contract in such a way that more blood cannot flow into our digestive system, and as a result that blood will be pushed out to different parts of the limbs. And that is how adrenaline hormone functions, by giving us a scope of fighting or flighting. Our next hormone is the thyroxine hormone, and the thyroxine hormone is secreted by the thyroid gland. The function of thyroxine hormone is to regulate the metabolism of carbohydrates, proteins and fats, means all the macronutrients that we intake in our diet. Now, if thyroxine is not functional, in that case the metabolism of carbohydrates, fats and proteins will not be done properly. As a result of that, we may suffer from a disease called the goiter. And one of the symptoms of goiter is a swollen neck. Your neck will become swollen, and that is because of the deficiency of carbohydrates, proteins and fats in our diet. But actually the thing is, there is carbohydrate, fats and proteins in our diet, but we cannot metabolize them because our thyroxine hormone is not functional. So thyroxine hormone is extremely useful, not beneficial, is extremely useful in metabolizing the carbohydrates, fats and the proteins. Now we will move on to our third hormone, that is the growth hormone. Now you may have encountered some people who are extremely tall or who are extremely short, that is dwarf people. Now why do some people become too tall or some people become too short, and some are of a mediocre height that we all see generally around us? Now why does that happen? Why is the difference in height? Well, that difference in height is because of the growth hormone. And this growth hormone will actually regulate how tall a person can become. If the growth hormone released is a bit higher, then the person will be a bit longer or a bit taller. And if the growth hormone released is a bit low, then you will see a person who is dwarf. And that is how the growth hormone regulates the height of a person, the tallness, whether it is he or she is going to be too tall or he or she is going to be dwarf. The growth hormone is released by the pituitary gland, and the pituitary gland is also called the master gland. And you must know about this, that pituitary gland controls all the different glands of the body. So it is the master gland, it is like the head of the institution, although it also does some functions, but it regulates the functions of all the other glands in the body. It is just like the principal of a school. So if you think of the principal of a school, the principal will actually guide all the other teachers to take the classes and to regulate their classes and everything. And at the same time, the principal himself also takes a few classes. So that is exactly the function of a pituitary gland. The pituitary gland will actually function in its own, and also it will regulate the function of the others. And this the own function of the pituitary gland is this growth hormone. The pituitary gland itself secretes the growth hormone for regulating the tallness or the shortness of an individual. The next hormone in our list are the testosterone and estrogen, and we are going to talk about this together. Now, testosterone and estrogen are the reproductive hormones. Testosterone is the male reproductive hormone and estrogen is the female reproductive hormone. Now, it is really interesting to know that testosterone and estrogen, they both are present in both male and female. But the difference lies in testosterone is more in male and estrogen is less in male. And the reverse is true for female, that is estrogen is more in females and testosterone is low in females. In certain cases where what we find is, in some of the individuals we may find, like for example, a male containing more testosterone but at the same time the estrogen level in their blood is also high. In that case you will see some of the traits shown by the male which are actually female traits. And the reverse is also true. Sometimes we find that some of the females who must have more estrogen in their blood, they also contain a higher level of testosterone, and hence those females will actually show some traits of males. Now that is a different concept and we will talk about this in the next chapter, chapter 8. But as of now you must understand that testosterone and estrogen are responsible for the reproductive system to function properly in our body. For males it is testosterone and for females it is estrogen. The next hormone that we are going to talk today is insulin, and it is one of the most interesting hormones in our body. And I'd say interesting because it regulates the blood sugar level. Now you must be all aware of the disease called diabetes, and many of us have diabetes patients in our homes, like our parents or our grandparents or our relatives or someone or the other. You will always find someone in your family who is suffering from diabetes, and that is because of the non-functioning of this hormone called the insulin. Now what the insulin does, it regulates the blood sugar level. So whenever the blood sugar level in your blood rises, at that time the insulin will actually allow the cells to take up the sugar from the blood and utilize the sugar for producing energy and so on. But if the insulin is not released when the blood sugar level is high, in that case the sugar will not be taken up by the cells, and if the sugar is not taken up by the cells, the sugar level in the blood will keep on rising and as a result give rise to diabetes. The reverse is also true. Suppose we are always secreting insulin in our blood. In that case what will happen, the insulin will be continuously secreted and more sugar will be taken out. Now there is an optimum level of sugar that is required to stay in the blood, which is called the normal sugar level of the blood. Now if the insulin is secreted too much, in that case more and more sugar will be accumulated into the cells and the amount of sugar in the blood will be very less. Now that will result in low sugar in the blood, which is also a bad case scenario. So that is why it is really important to regulate the amount of insulin that is present in the blood, because the amount of insulin will directly correlate to whether you have diabetes or you have low sugar or you have the perfect amount of sugar in your body. So now let us understand how the hormones are actually regulated in our body, and we can take the help of insulin in that case. Now regulation of hormones means when the hormone should be released, whether it should be released in higher amount or lower amount, and all those cases, and who will control it. Well, we must know that insulin is secreted by the pancreas. Pancreas is the gland, the endocrine gland that will secrete hormone, the insulin. Now insulin will regulate blood sugar level, as I mentioned earlier. So how is it regulated? Now when the blood sugar level increases in your blood, that is after taking any sort of meal, for example any carbohydrate meal that you have taken, for example your lunch. So after your lunch your blood sugar level will increase. At that time the body will signal the pancreas to release insulin. Now the insulin will come, it will allow the blood sugar to move into the cells, and as a result the blood sugar level in your blood will keep on decreasing. Once it reaches the optimum level or the recommended level in your blood, the body will again signal the pancreas that you should not remove or you should not release any more insulin into the blood, and the pancreas will stop releasing more hormones. And as a result, no more insulin will be released and no more sugar will be utilized back into the cell. And that is really important, because if the signals were not sent, then more and more insulin will come in and the blood sugar level will actually drop below the recommended level. And that is how the regulation of different types of hormones in our body take place. We have just taken the example of insulin. All the other hormones are regulated in a similar way by a feedback mechanism. Feedback means whenever a part of the action is done, a signal is sent back to the gland so that the release is stopped or so that the release is increased. So feedback mechanism, you will learn about feedback mechanism in detail when you reach in the higher classes, the higher secondary or the graduation. As of now, just know that how these are regulated. Whatever I have explained today about the different hormones and how they are regulated in a very simple manner. I hope you understood today's video. So if you have any confusion, then make sure you ask me either through WhatsApp or in the school app, so wherever you feel comfortable. So ask me your questions, I will clear out your doubts. And thank you everyone for watching, and until next time, cheers.